Recordings in progress. So we're going to record it, and then people can listen to it probably as early as tomorrow or Monday.
Probably Monday.
So if you want somebody else to listen to it or something that you would like, okay? We've been very, very busy in all of our offices for the most part. So sometimes I think we need to talk about slowing down and breathing a little bit. Breathing is so important to our overall health, and it sounds like an oxymoron, kind of like, well, everybody knows you got to breathe, everybody breathes, that's why they're alive. But to stay healthy, the way we breathe is very important. It's not a matter of just breathing. We have to think about how we breathe and what it does for our body. So we're going to kind of cover some of that. So, okay. So let's get started. I just thought that this would be interesting. We talk about things that we need in our life. How long can a person go without certain things? 3 weeks, a person can go without food, believe it or not. I know that's kind of hard to believe when we're detoxing. We do 3-4 days and we say, oh my gosh. But the human body can actually go 3 weeks without food because the body's innate intelligence takes care of that and doles out slowly releases body fat. We can go 3 days without water. A lot of times, we think we need more than that, but we don't want anybody to go 3 days without water, or 1 day even. We want people drinking their water, but in emergencies, catastrophes, if people have water, at least for within 3 days, they will survive. But when it comes to breathing, 3 minutes. 3 minutes without oxygen, you are considered expired. So it is so important about the oxygen that we breathe. I think we take it for granted. We have to understand that the body needs oxygen. The way we breathe dictates our health, and that is the kind of things that we want to talk about. When we talk about breathing, we have to talk about the lungs. So oftentimes the lungs, we don't really recognize the lungs. The lungs are simply organs that are in our chest. The left lung is divided into 2 lobes, and the right lung is divided into 3 lobes. Your left lung is actually a little bit smaller than the right because the placement in the body. On the left side is your heart, and therefore that takes up a little bit more room. So your left lung actually is a little bit smaller. They're kind of a spongy. If anybody's ever done any kind of hunting or anything, and so that if you see the lungs of animals, it's a spongy type, orangish, pinkish gray, I guess they call it. I always thought it was more of an orange color. But the lungs, when we enter air into our lungs, the oxygen from the air moves from our lungs into the blood. So it's not just about breathing and getting oxygen into the lungs, it's actually getting oxygen into the blood. At the same time, the blood then circulates through the body in every organ in our body to include the brain. So when we don't get oxygen to the brain, really what's happening is it means we're not getting any oxygen into the blood. So what happens is when the oxygen moves from the lungs to our blood, at the same instance, the carbon dioxide, which is a waste gas, okay, moves from the blood to the lungs and is actually exhaled. And that is our breath that comes out. And that process is actually called gas exchange. And if we don't exhale the carbon dioxide, then obviously we're not going to live. So we have to exhale. Now, I'm going to take this a little bit into the COVID area that we've been talking about. And when we do our Zyto scans, we're finding that people are actually what's happening is we're breathing back in the carbon dioxide that should be coming out of our body. And therefore, what's happening is we're breathing that back in, which is creating havoc into our lungs and is stressing the lungs as well. So that's just kind of a side note, what's happening in our body. Then in addition to the lungs, our respiratory system includes the trachea, which is the windpipe. That's the muscles of the chest, the diaphragm, blood vessels, and tissues that make the breathing and gas exchange possible. Our brain is actually what controls our breathing rate, meaning how fast or slow you breathe. And it does it normally by sensing the body's need for oxygen and its actual need to get rid of carbon dioxide. So when you're in a panic, a fight or flight mode, we have a tendency to breathe much faster because what happens is our body needs the oxygen, because when we get into a fight or flight, and people who live in a fight or flight lifestyle, whether it's high stress, whether it's in relationships that aren't good, stuff like that, what happens is they're not getting enough oxygen to the brain through the blood. And so therefore, they have a tendency to breathe faster. And if somebody was to walk up behind you right now and scare you, the first thing you would do is, as you jump, you would take a huge breath. And that is because the body is anticipating it's going to need extra oxygen. And sometimes when that happens, we feel lightheaded. We feel like that we need to, get that oxygen, to get that energy to move. And if you don't need it and somebody just scared you, sometimes you'll feel that lightheaded. And sometimes people say, get scared. And it's almost like, why'd you do that? You almost gave me a heart attack, because you've got that extra influx of oxygen in the brain that you're really not used to. All right. So what we need to do is, like I said, there's a lung on each side of the body. The circulatory system is also part of the whole system, and that all this stuff supports the respiratory system by bringing the lung to and from the lungs. Now, if we go back and we look at the lungs, if you think of your lungs and the breathing, what we're going to talk about is how to breathe. And we need to breathe deep. We need to take deep breaths, because when I mentioned that the heart is involved in the process, as you inhale, you are actually working your body or your heart. You're actually working your heart and making your heart work. So what we want to do is, in reality, you want to take a lighter breath, about 4 seconds in, and then you want to hold it. While you're holding your breath and while you're releasing your breath, you are actually putting your heart at rest. Now, why is that important? And people will say, I don't have time to time my breathing. I just got to breathe. You don't do it when you're working. What we need to do is take time to when we have a few moments, is to sit down and just kind of realize, how are you breathing? If you're breathing in and out real fast, that's not healthy. The slower your breath, the better. So if you breathe in, take a breath, and you can hold it for a little bit and let it out real slow, and you make a practice of that, you will do that more often during the day when you're working, and you'll slow down your breathing. For people that have been in athletics, they always talk about slowing down the game. And that means slow down your breathing, because when we get excited, we breathe fast. When we slow down our breathing, everything slows down for us mentally, and then we're able to cope. And it doesn't have to just be athletics. That can be in a conversation. That can be in an argument. if you get into an argument and you're upset, you have a tendency to breathe fast because you're angry and you want to get your side out. You want to explain yourself, and we have a tendency, and therefore we kind of overreact. Because we get so pumped up. But if you can slow that down and say to yourself, you know what, just listen, don't say anything, slow it down. Your brain will actually work better, and it's actually going to help in your responses or whatever it is. People that give speeches, for example, are taught, when I was in public speaking a lot, I learned before you speak, you get this anxiousness. If you can take a deep breath, hold it, and Patty will tell you that a lot of times before I would do classes or presentations, I would just kind of go off by myself. And that was a time when I would just say to myself, slow it down. It's okay, breathe slow, breathe in, hold, and release. And when I would do that, instead of getting up in front of a crowd and talking too fast, you already got yourself slowed down, so your breathing is going to dictate how you're going to feel. Okay, so what happens when our body when we inhale? We're taking a breath, we're bringing in the oxygen to the blood through the lungs, and it's spread out through the every organ in your body. Okay, and then when we exhale, we're getting rid of the waste. We're exhaling the carbon monoxide, and we breathe in carbon dioxide. Okay, so it's a back and forth process. Okay, now, when we talk about breathing, we talk about mouth breathing versus nasal breathing. The best way to breathe is nasal breathing, okay, because it's slower. When is it good to breathe through the mouth? And that is when you need oxygen fast. So a lot of times in athletics, if you're working out, you're at the gym, you'll find yourself breathing through your mouth. And that can be because your body is saying, I need the oxygen faster than what you can get it through the nose. However, if you're a mouth breather, you will find yourself becoming more tired and fatigued faster than you will if you nasal breathe, because there's so much activity. If you sit there, if you're sitting there now, if you just kind of take a deep breath through the mouth versus a deep breath through the nose, it's easier to hold it if you breathe in through the nose than if you breathe in through the mouth. So you want to practice in our everyday life, we want to practice breathing through the nose. Why do a lot of people breathe through the mouth? Because they might have nasal issues. They get a lot of mucus built up in the nasal passages, and therefore it becomes blocked. And then it feels like I can't get oxygen. So then we become mouth breathers, and then we're breathing too much, too fast, etc. The average person, ideal, believe it or not, would be about 6 breaths per minute. That's ideal. So when you're exercising, you're upset, you will find that the average person will breathe somewhere in the range, sometimes 30 to 40 breaths a minute. So that means every 2 seconds about, you're taking a breath in and out, which is too much work on the heart. So to slow down your breathing, practice nasal breathing, okay? But when you have a cold or all these allergies that are going around, people end up mouth breathing and it becomes a habit. So if you're sleeping and you mouth breathe, you're probably going to wake up with a very, very dry mouth. Your mouth is really dry. And you can tell the times that happens because you'll wake up and your mouth will feel almost like a crusty. If you nasal breathe at night, you're not going to wake up with that dry mouth. And what does a dry mouth cause? Bad breath. But for children, in actuality, it can they say can actually cause crooked teeth, facial deformities, and poor growth. In adults, it causes bad breath and can create gum disease. And science says that it can also worsen symptoms of other poor health issues by breathing, mouth breathing. So it's really important for our health to try to practice nasal breathing. And for people that get allergies, nasal congestion all the time, that means there's a health issue going on which needs to be addressed because that needs to be cleared out. And it shouldn't be cleared out by taking stuff like Claritin all the time and all that stuff. It should be done in a natural way so that those air passages are actually opened up. So the advantages of breathing through the nose, the nose produces nitrogen oxide, which actually improves the lungs' ability to absorb oxygen. So by breathing that, you are actually helping your body with nitric oxide. And nitric oxide actually increases the ability to transport oxygen throughout the body, including to the inside of the heart and the heart valves. So a lot of times when people have heart valve issues, it means that they're not getting the nitric oxide. Therefore, they will end up later in life with more issues with heart valves, heart muscles, that type of thing. So that's some of the importance of it. It might not sound important at the time when we talk about it, what differences it make, but everything that we do affects us later on in life. So the sooner we learn to do the right thing, the better off we are. I think we had a question.
So the question is, how do you prevent sleeping with an open mouth or if you wear a bite guard?
Okay, so if you sleep with a mouth guard, okay, I guess my question would be for the person that sent the message, why are you wearing a mouth guard? That I would ask that question. Is there a reason why they have you wearing it? But if you're wearing a mouth guard, I would think that you would almost have to breathe through the nose. I would think, okay? To be honest with you, I've never had to wear a night guard of any sort, or mouth guard, I'm sorry, not a night guard, a mouth guard. So I don't really know the reason for that unless it's for not biting or clenching the jaws. But again, I think that would normally, I think people wear it for grinding teeth, snoring, sleep apnea, that type of thing. Or sometimes maybe if they have braces, sometimes that can happen. But if you want to let me know why the mouth guard, then I think I can better address that. Okay. Moving on, advantages of nose breathing. Your nose actually acts as a filter and retains small particles in the air, including pollen. So because of what's in the nose and the hairs in the nose, then what happens is we filter out things that we really don't want going into the lungs. For mouth breathing, there's really no a guard against that. The nose actually adds moisture to the air to prevent dryness in the lungs and bronchial tubes. So you won't wake up with that coughing, that dryness in your chest, thinking that you've got something in there or it's a dry cough, because mouth breathing dries everything out. The nose actually warms up cold air to body temperature before it actually gets to the lungs. For those of us who have ever lived in real cold temperatures and you walk outside and you take a deep breath and a real cold, it can be very hard on your lungs. In fact, when I was stationed in Alaska, in the Air Force, they wouldn't let us when it was bitter cold, wind chill 100 degrees below zero. On a mountaintop, they wouldn't let us go outside. You had to go out into a room that wasn't heated, and then you would have to ease yourself out because it could be too damaging to the lungs. So that is, that's another reason, okay? Nose breathing actually adds resistance to the airstream. So this increases oxygen uptake by maintaining the lungs' elasticity. So your lungs actually expand and then retract and expand. The other thing about breathing and getting back into the lungs is that when we breathe through our mouth, we have a tendency, like I said earlier, that the particles in the air and stuff get into our lungs, which can actually cause things like a lot of allergies within the lungs, because your lungs, when it gets in the lungs, much like things get in the liver, it starts to pollute the lungs. And the lungs hold that waste, and the lungs start to fill up in those lobes, and they fill up. So there's less actual room for oxygen and air in the lungs. So when that happens, the breathing becomes more and more shallow. And then oftentimes when people say they have exercise-induced asthma, thank you, exercise-induced asthma, it's actually because you're breathing deeper when you're exercising, which takes that waste in the lungs and moves it up to try to eradicate it from the lungs, which makes us cough and sneeze and all that stuff, because it is a waste. And therefore, people end up using a lot of inhalers to stuff it back into the lungs so that they don't have that reaction. But that reaction really is something that should happen in order to be able to clean out the lungs. So it's kind of a catch-22. If I breathe deep, I'm going to get that waste out, but I'm going to start coughing and maybe feel miserable. But if I take the inhaler and stuff it back in, I can breathe better, but it's polluting my lungs, and therefore my breathing becomes more shallow. And the longer I breathe shallow, the more problems I'm going to have with my heart due to lungs and heart, due to the lack of oxygen to both of those organs, okay? So that's just kind of an idea, reason that you want to be cognizant of how you're breathing. Now, how do you know if you're breathing through your mouth? So a lot of times people say, I don't know, I don't pay a lot of attention to it, okay? And especially when we're sleeping. The people who breathe through their mouth at night will normally have some of the following symptoms. Number one, they're going to snore. You really are not going to snore if you're breathing in through the nose, okay? So if somebody is snoring, that's almost indicative of the fact that they're mouth breathing. They have a dry mouth. Their mouth is dry in the morning, especially. They wake up and they feel they have to have something to drink in the middle of the night. They got to have water because they're mouth breathing. They have bad breath, or known as halitosis. Bad breath is not a given in the morning, okay? A lot of it is because of the way we breathe. It can be also because of things we ate the night before, different things, and or stomach irritation, gases, etc. that can cause it. But if you're mouth breathing, you're probably going to have bad breath. Hoarseness, you're going to feel hoarse a lot. You know, like you got to clear the throat all the time. You're always clearing that. Waking up tired and irritable all the time can also be caused by mouth breathing. Why? Because you're not getting the oxygen to the brain, you're not getting in the blood to the brain, and you're not exhaling everything that needs to be exhaled. Chronic fatigue can cause because of the lack of restful sleep. Brain fog and dark circles under the eyes. So those are some of the ways to tell if you are breathing through the mouth. For children, you know, a lot of times they don't tell you the symptoms. It's harder to read it, but some of the things that for children you can tell: slower than normal growth rate, irritable all the time, increased crying episodes at night, waking up at night crying, larger tonsils, and oftentimes It's been known that tonsils get removed at a young age when sometimes they wouldn't have to be removed, but medicine says they're large or they're overgrown, and sometimes that can be strictly because the child is mouth breathing. Dry and cracked lips, problems concentrating, and daytime sleepiness. So those are some of the things that you can look at for kids. It's said that children who exhibit problems concentrating at school are often misdiagnosed with attention deficit disorder or hyperactivity. And a lot of times that can just be a matter of them not breathing properly, getting the right oxygen to the brain, because if we deprive it long enough, then obviously we're gonna, the brain is gonna suffer as well, okay? Okay, so the message came back due to clenching. Okay, that is an issue. But again, you're breathing the mouth guard, but if you're doing it because of clenching, you can still practice breathing through the mouth or the nose, I'm sorry. But what you might want to do to practice that for the person who put this through is use the mouth guard during the day when you're alone and practice breathing through the nose with it in, so that you know, like anything else, repetition makes habit. So if you keep on doing the same thing when you can, use it when you're alone and practice that, you'll find out that you are, that might help you at night to breathe through the nose. There was something else.
The other question was about yawning. Is
Okay.
yawning a sign of mouth breathing?
Yawning. Well, yes, it can be, but it can also, you can have yawning issues even if you're nose breathing, if you're not breathing deep enough. Because like we mentioned, that oxygen has to get into the blood to circulate to the brain. When you yawn and you take that deep breath, really, if you think about it, that is a exaggerated mouth breath, which means your body is saying we don't have enough oxygen, so that sudden breath is that urgency or emergency to get oxygen to the brain. All right. Now people say, well, it's because I'm sleepy. Well, as I mentioned earlier, by mouth breathing, especially at night, you're going to be more tired. So therefore, that is actually going to happen. All right. So the somebody else messaged. Okay. So what causes mouth breathing? Why do we do it? Normally it's because our breathing is being obstructed through the nasal airway. All right. And there's something preventing it, which can be nasal congestion caused by allergies, a cold, a sinus infection. And the problem is when you have a sinus infection for a while, or whether it's a few days or longer, what happens is that we get in the habit of breathing through the mouth. And then when the sinus infection or the cold or the allergy is gone, then it doesn't just change. We have to kind of force ourselves to go back to the nose breathing. It can be caused by enlarged adenoids, enlarged tonsils. Again, I mentioned about the tonsils. It can be caused by deviated septum, which sometimes people have to end up with surgery on. Nasal polyps or benign growths in the tissue in the lining of the nose. It can actually be the shape of the nose, if the nose is pinched or something like that, and the shape and size of the jaw can actually cause it, okay? In rare cases, it can be tumors, but that's a rarity, okay? So I don't want anybody that thinks that their mouth breathing to think they have a tumor somewhere, okay? So it is very, very rare that is a cause, but I just wanted to mention that, okay? What are the risks again? Chronic of mouth breathing, chronic allergies, hay fever, recurring or chronic sinus infections, asthma, and chronic stress and anxiety, okay? Stress and anxiety. So if somebody has anxiety, a lot of anxiety, you want to be thinking about breathing. Like most things in our life, we have to go back to the basics. And a lot of times the basics in our health is as simple as, or can be partially corrected by how we breathe, how we act, some of the very basic things. If you think about your spine, sometimes it's how you walk. It's how your feet plant to the ground. It can actually dictate a healthy spine or not. So in a lot of this we're talking about can be something as simple as how are we breathing. And it's not something that somebody's gonna be able to stand there and watch you and say, you're breathing right or you're breathing wrong, okay? It's something we have to kind of think about ourselves and just sit down and do it. One thing that I have found to help you breathe through the nose is to do meditation, or I call it prayer. Just do something that calms you. And the calmer we are, the easier it is to breathe through the nose. The more anxious we are, the more, because it's a catch-22, you know, the more anxious you are, the more you're going to breathe through the mouth. The more you breathe through the mouth, the more anxious you're going to be. So somewhere we have to stop it and say, okay, I've got to calm myself. And I find that through meditation, through prayer, thinking about the breathing, taking that deep breath, holding it periodically, and just taking 2 minutes to do that 2 or 3 times, that it actually helps to alleviate itself, okay? So, where do we go from there?
You need a sip?
Sure.
So let's everybody pause and breathe.
Take a deep breath.
So since I started working on this PowerPoint, I've been practicing nose breathing because I don't know, I think I'm a mouth breather, I'm not sure, but I really consciously close my lips and breathe through my nose. Just see, and it makes me do it more. So the question about wearing the mouth guard and at night, so when I go to bed now, I purposely just close my lips and just keep breathing through my nose, and I hopefully am breathing through my nose the whole time I'm sleeping. So just a thought.
Good point. Great point. Okay.
We're moving on.
Okay, how does breathing affect our nervous system? Okay, so the nervous system is a process in our body, and this is where all of our anxiety and overwhelming stress starts. The faster our heart rate is, the faster we breathe dictates anxiety, okay? So when we work our central nervous system and our peripheral nervous system, we get into different, and I'm not going to go real deep into them because it's you know, the sympathetic and the parasympathetic basically is when we're in a fight or flight or we're in rest, okay? Now, in our lifestyle, unfortunately, people become much more in the parasympathetic range, in the sympathetic range than they are in the parasympathetic, okay? We're in fight or flight so much. Even when it's time to unwind, we're thinking about the bad. We're thinking about what's going to happen tomorrow and what if this doesn't happen. And we're always in that fight or flight. We have to learn to get out of the sympathetic, fight or flight, and into the parasympathetic, which is rest and digest. So rest and digest. So now we're taking a step farther. So when we breathe, good breathing can actually help our digestive system. Imagine that, okay? So people that have digestive problems oftentimes are the ones that are so anxious. And it takes up so much energy that your body doesn't have time to digest. We all know that when we become in a fight or flight, everything changes. Our stomach becomes upset, things happen. And obviously, without even thinking about it, we're breathing wrong. We're oh my gosh, what's going to happen? You know what? what should I do? Where should I go? How should I change it, etc. Instead of stopping and saying to yourself, take a breath, take a deep breath. We tell that to children. Children will come to us and say, oh, the world is coming to an end and the sky is falling and my friends don't like me anymore, etc., etc. We say, okay, slow down, slow down. It's going to be okay. When a child gets hurt, what's the first thing we say? You're okay. You know, you're going to be okay. And we calm them because we want to put them in the parasympathetic, which is rest and digest. But if we don't, as adults, and take care of ourselves in the same way and talk to ourselves the same way, then we end up in the fight or flight mode all the time. And then we wonder why we can't sleep, because we never come out of the fight or flight. We're always in the sympathetic. So that is why before bed, another good way to perhaps help breathing is calm yourself by reading something that's calming. Watch something on TV perhaps that's calming. You know, not the horror show where you're thinking the guy's behind the shower curtain with an axe gonna chop somebody's head off. You know, that's not the way you want to get ready for bed and shut your eyes and go to sleep. Okay, so you want to get out of that fight or flight and get into the parasympathetic if you want to have rest and relaxation. Okay, I'm not going to get into the neurons and all that stuff because it's too much. And again, the parasympathetic versus the sympathetic kind of gives you an idea of what, if you can see that, it's made up of the two systems, fight or flight or relaxation, calming, rest and digest and it's our choice which direction we want to go. I think we might have another question. Is it ever okay to breathe in through your nose and breathe out through your mouth if you are exercising, such as running? Absolutely. Okay, that's a great question. In fact, oftentimes, and I'll kind of regress a little bit, kind of go back, if you're exercising, we have a tendency especially when we first start exercising, to breathe through our mouth, okay? And it's called adrenaline. Adrenaline is, we're ready to go. I got my track shoes on, I'm gonna run, and I'm gonna get some good exercise, or whatever it might be. And you'll find yourself becoming tired quickly. And it's because we're breathing too hard. We're making the heart work too much, okay? So what you'll find is if you breathe in, take a breath through your nose, keep exercising, take a breath through the nose, hold it, just keep exercising, keep running, keep walking, keep whatever you're doing, and then let it out really slow through the mouth, real slow, and keep exercising, keep doing, your body's moving. You do that 2 or 3 times, you will find your energy will actually increase immensely, because you've got the oxygen in the brain, but you rested the heart. Even though you're working, you rested the heart compared to what you're doing. And you'll find that your heart rate will, if you're on a machine and with it measures heart rate, if you do that and you test your heart rate and then you breathe in like that and test it again, you'll find that your heart rate will actually go down because it's calming and relaxing to the body. And you can actually exercise longer and harder by doing that. So yes, there is time to breathe in through the nose and out through the mouth, which is a great question. So person asked that, thank you very much. Okay, but practice that when you're exercising. Also practice it when you're mad. Okay, when you're mad, breathe in through the nose, hold it, and breathe out through the mouth slowly. Let it out really slow, because if you're letting your breath out through your mouth, you can't talk. And if you're angry and you can't talk, I'm going to tell you, it saves a whole lot of problems down the road. If the other person will do that, hey, there'll be love in the air. There won't be anger. So try it. Okay. All right. Okay, where was I? Okay, go on to the next one. Okay. Good. All right. So 3 reactions to the perceived threat, okay? Fight, which means we take a deep breath and we get the energy, the adrenaline comes up, and we say we are going to take this on, we are going to fight it, and we get our body ready, but it can only be in that state for a little bit of time. It can't be in there for a long period of time. It's got to be quick. You make a decision, you move, and that's it, okay? Because the body can't sustain that. And we can hurt ourselves by staying in the fight mode. Flight is where we just say, you know what, I can get away from this. The tiger comes roaring in through the room, wants to have dinner, and you're the dinner, but you can say, I can slip out this door and I'm okay. You do it quick, the body reacts, you move quickly and you're out. But you can't stay in a flight state very long, because you're breathing. After you get out that door, you're going to be going, oh my gosh, well, look what happened. This happened, that happened. And that can be when you're driving a car, somebody pulls in front of you, stuff like that, okay? That would be a flight. You swerved, you hit the brakes, you stopped before. Or freeze. Freezing means you just didn't do anything. You're just there, okay? Not good for you if the tiger is coming at you, good for the tiger because the tiger has dinner, okay? But sometimes we have to freeze, okay? There's sometimes there's nothing we can do. We have to freeze and let it pass by. But again, we can't stay in a perceived threat for a long time. Some people live their life in a fight, flight, or freeze state all the time. So what happens is the pupils are always dilated. We end up with tunnel vision. We're always looking around and wondering what's going to happen next. You know, you've heard the thing, I'm waiting for the next shoe to drop. Breathing becomes fast and shallow, which we already talked about. That's not good. Heart rate beats fast and it's noticeable. A person's face gets red. They start sweating. If it's long-term, they're going to have insomnia. They're going to be thinking about that terrible situation. And long-term can turn into an ADD, ADHD type situation. Our mouth gets dry. We have male sexual inadequacies. We have leg muscles become tight. We start getting cramps. Neck, shoulder, arms, all that stuff becomes cramping and tight and painful. Those are the things that happen when people are in a constant flight, fight, or freeze mode, which is extremely, extremely unhealthy. And oftentimes when people tell me that somebody passed at a young age, heart attacks, etc., a lot of times you can look back at their life and you can see that they've been in this mode. And sometimes it starts very young when we're children, because we were raised in a fight or flight mode, okay? For whatever reason, we can't change that. All we can do is learn that we got to get out of that. We can't live our whole life in it because of what happened as children. We can't, and that's why relationships sometimes, you got to change a relationship or you got to fix the relationship. You can't live in a kind of relationship that's that way. And I don't just mean in a marriage, I mean in households, brothers, sisters, whatever, my children, parents. Sometimes it gets to that point where everybody's in that mode and we live our life that way. And that can't happen if you're going to live a healthy life. Okay, the power of breath, okay? What we want to do is basically to balance your nervous system. We have to balance it. Now, granted, we can't be meditating all the time, okay? You know, we can't be sitting down. I know when I was in my 20s, the big thing was meditation. People sit down cross-legged on the floor, and you would would hear them humming all the time. You know, they would, sometimes people could do it for a long period of time. I never understood it because I can't. But we can't live in that state all the time either. That's not healthy. We have to do things. There's going to be problems in our life. If there isn't problems, there's probably something wrong in our life anyway, okay? So a deep sigh is our body, the brain's natural way to release tension and reset your nervous system. So when Patty says or does something I don't like, and I go, that's just my way of balancing myself, okay? Okay, that wasn't right.
I'm glad you balance yourself that way.
But Patty will say, what was that sigh for? I'm just balancing my nervous system, okay? So I don't get angry. No, but that's sometimes a good deep sigh is fine. Even if somebody says, well, I don't like that sigh. Well, you know what? If that's your way, and that's a good way to release and to calm and release tension, it doesn't matter what anybody else thinks, okay? Let them reset their nervous system as well. And let them sigh back. So reset, take that deep breath, hold it, and let it out. That's a good sigh. So, and like I said, studies have shown that deep sighs returns the autonomic nervous system back to balance. So it's good for that. So something happens when you go to your desk and your boss just gave you more work than you can do, you know, take that deep sigh, let it out. Just relax and let's say it's okay. It's okay. The world's not going to come to an end no matter what for you, as long as you take care of your body and balance your central nervous system. Too many heart attacks, too many strokes, etc., because we don't balance. We let work, we let everything in our life dictate and keep us off balance all the time. And we need to reset on a regular basis. Many times during the day, we need to reset, because we all know that things can happen in a moment, okay, and get us off track. We have to be thinking, okay, I feel this way, how do I get back? A deep breath, let it out slow. Let somebody call it a sigh, let it whatever, but let it happen to you and take care of you, and don't worry about anything else, all right? So breathe.
So let's practice some breathing.
Okay, we're gonna, I would like everybody to practice breathing. We call it the 4-7-8 technique. Some of you have heard it many times, but oftentimes when we don't talk about it for a while, it gets forgotten, okay? 4-7-8, so I'm just gonna call it out, and I want you to think, for right now, I want everybody to take a deep breath, and I'm gonna count, 1001, 1000, okay, you gotta close your mouth too, okay? Inhale through the nose, even if you're kind of blocked, count of 4, 1001, 1002, 1003, 1004. Hold it now, 1002, 1003, 1004, 1005, 1006, 1007. Let it out through the mouth slowly, kind of a swooshing sound to count of 8. 1004, 1005, 1006, 1007, 1008. Now, the best way to do it is to do it again and repeat the cycle 3 more times. So it's a total of 4 breaths. If you do that, and I hope some of you are doing it while I'm talking, okay? If you think about that, that is 19 seconds. 19 seconds to do that process. If you do it 4 times, that's 72 seconds, okay? So that's 1.25 minutes. And by doing that, you will feel calm. And for people that have trouble feeling calm, the people that have trouble relaxing, if you do that twice a day, once when you get up and once before you go to bed, if you did that and took 144 seconds a day to do that, you can reset and you can help your digestive system. You can help your cardiovascular system. What?
Sorry, I didn't know where you're going.
Okay. You can help so many parts of our body by just taking that 144 seconds and just relaxing, because if you're doing this, you cannot You cannot be upset when you're taking those kind of breaths. You just can't. Another question is, do chiropractic adjustments help balance your central nervous systems if done regularly 1 time a week? Okay. Yes, chiropractic can help. If your spine is out of a line, you can never be fine, okay?
Quoting Dr. Jim McKeon.
But if you're out of alignment and the muscles are off, that can pull on your lungs, your heart cavity, etc. And yes, it can help, okay? But breathing and the way you breathe is still the most important thing. Because if you're uptight all the time, your muscles are pulling, the vertebrae are attached to the muscles are attached to the vertebrae or vice versa, and they start pulling. When they start pulling, that actually affects the vertebrae. So people that are, and chiropractors will tell you, people that are upset and uptight all the time have more spine issues than people that are relaxed and calm. So the people that are upset and out of sorts all the time are much better clients for chiropractors than not, okay? It's just the way it works. So yes, it can help, but start and practice breathing. Start and practice breathing. So another good question. Okay. Right. Right. Breathe.
This talks about belly breathing versus
Okay.
chest breathing.
All right. So what we're going to do is I want you to, again, when you practice the breathing, I probably should have done this when I had you doing 4-7-8. Okay. Are you a chest breather or are you a belly breather? All right. So Patty, what's better? Would it be a chest breather or belly breather?
I'm gonna say belly breather.
Okay, correct. Okay. Okay. So about 70% of our toxins from the human body are removed through breathing. Okay. The other 30% come from sweating, defecation, and urination. They actually remove a smaller amount of toxins from the body than breathing. Who would have thought that?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So when you have a good movement, you feel really good. So just if that's only 30% or less of your total elimination, think about what good, deep breathing can make you feel like if you practice it and you do it. All right. So remember, we start breathing within seconds of being born. All right, that's our first body function, and it's going to be our last body function in reality, breathing. And that's how important it is. So in Western culture, we're taught to hold in our stomach, tuck in our buttocks, and push back our shoulders. Okay, what are the results? A stiffness or strain on the whole body, which makes it very uncomfortable to even walk. All right. So we have to get rid of the idea that you have to hold in the stomach and you have to you push the shoulders back all the time. Sometimes we just have to relax. All right. So if you want to know if you're a chest or a belly breather, okay, you can take a test to determine that. So you want to stand or sit wherever you are, take a deep breath. You want to put one hand on your chest and the other hand on your belly. Let out your breath. Now you want to determine whether your chest or your belly expand more or deflate more, okay? When you take a breath, if your chest raises more, you are a chest breather, okay? So put your hand on your chest and your belly, take a breath. Which expanded more?
My belly.
Okay, good. So if an exercise, if you're a chest breather, is to lie down on your back and place a book on your belly. So this will teach you how to become a belly breather because you will notice a rise and fall of the book when you breathe deep. So if you're a chest breather and the book doesn't rise, you got to do it different. You got to work on becoming a belly breather. All right. And there are people that actually teach this, believe it or not. Okay. So there is, you want to work on becoming a belly breather because it relaxes you much more than being a chest breather. I think sometimes people always say, take a deep breath and throw your chest out. Well, not so much, okay? There's a good thing about the belly being where it's at. Okay, another question?
Can breathing properly help balance your blood sugar along with a good diet?
Yes.
Definitely.
Easy question is yes. Okay.
All right.
I do practice breathing.
Wait, there's something in between. This has nothing to do with breathing. Oh, wait, sorry.
Breathing properly help balance. Okay. Yes.
One more. There's nothing to do with breathing, but what do you have for a sprained ankle? Okay, we can talk about that later.
Huh?
Somebody's got a sprained ankle question.
Okay.
I do practice the breathing when I can't sleep or get overwhelmed with work. It does help to get me either asleep or back to a more neutral state. Good.
Right. Whatever that is, that's a good thing. Practice breathing and be a belly breather. Breathe in slow, let it out slow, and calm yourself. Do something that's calming. Do something that keeps your heart rate down. Take time in your day to say, this is my repairing of my health, okay? By breathing. There's so many things that we talk about that we need to do for good health, and we need to practice all of it. People will say, you know what, it's just so much. But if we don't practice it, if we don't breathe right, if we don't take care of our digestion, if we don't take care of things, then we don't lead a very good or healthy life, okay? We become sick, we become stressed, we become all the things we don't want to be. And then we end up becoming our parents, okay? We always said, I want to be my parents, but then we live the same life and then we become our parents, all right? Breathe. If you're in pain, breathe. If you're not in pain, breathe. So the common denominator is what?
Breathe.
Breathe, okay? Breathe slow, take it easy. Don't be upset all the time. And when you get upset, practice breathing. That will calm you. When you can't sleep, practice breathing. Everything is about breath, and that's why we breathe. Breathing is the first thing we've ever done, and it'll be the last thing we ever do. Breathing, that's that important. I want to thank you for being here. I hope you got some out of this. I will open it up for questions. Anybody has a question, raise your hand, come off of mute, ask. I see we have Liz on there now. She's driving home, I think. Wave, Liz, say hi. Okay. There she is. Okay, she worked late. Kim, you have a question?
I do. So sometimes I get palpitations, like out of the blue. I'll be just sitting at my desk working and my heart will start racing. Is that something that can help balance that out to the 4-7-8 thing, or no?
Yes, because when you get palpitations, that means you're in the fight or flight mode. Now you say you're sitting at your desk and somebody say, well, I'm here by myself, there's nothing going on. Oh yes, there is. There's something going on in your brain, okay? There's something going on. Something is saying something isn't right. So we start to breathe more shallow and the body's not getting the oxygen. So yes, as soon as you feel a heart palpitation, take that breath, 4, 7, 8, and do it 4 times, okay? 4 times. And do that, and I'm going to tell you, the anxiety will go away. It'll dissipate, okay? Now, will doing that once or twice a day make all anxiety go away? No, because you still have problems. We still have things we have to get done. There's still relationship issues, there's money issues, there's whatever, business issues, whatever it is, the issues are still there. That's why we have to keep practicing, because those issues aren't going to go away, all right? We know that in our life, we have all these issues going on. And all you have to do is turn on the news and see all the issues, okay? And so therefore, we got to practice on doing the things when our body gets off center. In this case, we breathe. We say, okay, I know what to do, breathe. And people that get palpitations or anxiety attacks, they're taught to take a paper bag and breathe into it, put it over your nose and mouth, and breathe in and exhale in the bag and then breathe back in. Why? Because you're breathing in the carbon dioxide back in, and that calms the body. Plus, you can't do it fast, so it calms everything. But you can do that by doing those exercises.
Well, with the mask, none of us should have stress then.
Say that again?
I said with the mask situation, none of us should have stress now because we're all breathing back in carbon dioxide.
But no, but you're also breathing back in carbon monoxide. Okay, and that's what should be exhaled, all right? So the mask is, and you wouldn't walk around forever with a paper bag around your nose and mouth, okay? So the mask, we're walking around all the time. With a paper bag, it's just for a few breaths. Okay, so that's a huge difference. Who else has a question?
John, can you hear me?
Boy, can I ever.
Hey, Carol.
Oh, hi. So, yeah, my question is just any recommendations for when we have to be wearing masks to try to, I know it's not healthy to be wearing the mask, but is there any way of breathing that?
Yeah, slow down your breathing. Even when you wear the mask, slow down your breathing. When you're away from people, pull it away from your nose a little bit, take a couple of breaths so you can expel. Don't keep it on all the time. Like when I went on vacation and we're on the plane and airport, at times I would just take and pull it away a little bit and then breathe and then let it come back. If you have to wear it, you have to wear it. I mean, it's the way life is today. That's our life anymore. Okay. So there are little things you can do.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. But slow down your breathing.
So John, Dr. Nelson, with the last time or a couple times ago, she talked about if you have difficulty sleeping, to put your tongue on the roof of your mouth and then take several really deep breaths several times. What does the roof of the mouth thing have to do with anything?
Forces you. I believe that it forces you to breathe through the nose. Think about it. Put your tongue in the roof of your mouth and try to breathe through your mouth. I just tried. It's much harder.
Yeah, it's harder.
Yeah. So I gotta believe that would be the reason.
I thought it was good to breathe through your nose and exhale through your mouth. Is that not correct?
Yes, that's what you want. But it forces you to breathe in through the nose.
Right. Okay.
Okay. So yeah, whatever it is that will help you to relax. I think, Ann, you told me that you tried that and it worked really good for you, right?
Yeah, it does. It hasn't recently. I tried it the other night at 2:30 in the morning when I couldn't sleep, but most of the time it works for me.
Was Bob snoring?
He was not. He was being a good boy.
All right. Yeah, take the deep breath. Practice a 4-7-8. Whether you put the tongue to the roof of the mouth or not. You can try it both ways. I'd be curious if one works better than the other. I don't know.
I mean, I didn't do the 4-7-8 when I was doing that. I just put my tongue on the roof of my mouth, and then I just took as deep a breath as I could and then released it like 3 or 4 times.
Okay. Try the 4-7-8 next time to see if that works.
Okay.
Okay, who else has a question? Nobody? Okay.